I never would have thought that for my first time in the fighting ring. The audience would be saying I'd get killed by my opponent in 3 seconds. But I just smiled without saying a word. That's because I've awakened an unparalleled, ancient talent. I can learn any top-tier technique just by seeing it once. With just a little practice, I can reach the highest level of mastery. You see, this is a world overrun by savage beasts. Martial artists have become a high-income class, but my parents died in a beast tide when I was a child. To give the uncle and his family who raised me a better life, I chose the path of martial arts. But now, I'm stuck because of the $30,000 Martial Arts Academy registration fee. For a martial apprentice to earn tens of thousands in a short time. The only option is the underground fighting arena. So, the next day, I put on a minotaur mask. And stepped into the life or death challenge ring. The female announcer explained the brutal rules. Win 4 matches in a row, and you can take home 60,000. Lose 1, and you get nothing. The crowd didn't think much of me from the start. The announcer told me to hurry up and hype up the atmosphere. Following her impatient instructions, I clenched my fists and roared at the entire audience. Below the rank of a martial artist, I am unbeatable. If you don't believe me, come and fight. I didn't expect it to be so effective. The whole place exploded. As the announcer declared the start of the match, a burly man in a rat mask leapt onto the stage. Although he looked intimidating, I could tell at a glance that his stance was unsteady. When he threw a punch, I spotted an opening. I hit him with a floating light palm right on the chin, sending him flying off the stage. I shouted in excitement. The crowd started to get excited. My second opponent wore a red-faced mask. He cracked his knuckles, mocking me, saying I just got lucky. I shrugged disdainfully and beckoned him with my finger. Come on, perfect, I'll test the power of my diamond fist on him. When he swung at me, I didn't dodge or evade. I met his fist head-on with my own. The moment our fists collided, his eyes filled with shock. It seemed his punching power was no match for mine. I seized the opportunity and threw a quick punch at his head. Then kicked him in the stomach, sending him straight off the ring. The crowd's enthusiasm was soaring. Meanwhile, in the organizer's private box high above, a man in a suit watched the ring through the glass. He's not even a probationary martial artist, but his strength far surpasses that of an ordinary apprentice. This kid is interesting. When he saw me win the 3rd match as well, he suddenly became interested. Someone like him is perfect for throwing a match. His subordinate, Fox, immediately understood. Master, I'll go take care of him. Back in the ring, I watched the medics carry the injured fighter away. I was feeling confident. With my diamond fist at the micro-mastery level, dealing with ordinary apprentices isn't hard. Just one more win, and the 60,000 prize money would be mine. But my final opponent was a man in a white fox mask. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Isn't he a probationary martial artist? Why is he fighting against apprentices? My heart sank. It seemed this was going to be a tough fight. But there was no way I could lose. He sneered, "Don't worry. I'll go easy on you." As the announcer declared the start of the final match, we threw our punches at almost the same time. The moment they connected, I sensed something was wrong. This heavy, condensed power. He was intentionally suppressing his vital energy. The fox was testing my strength. A single thunderclap fist struck me, and I flew back, spitting up blood. It was clear my strength was no match for his. The audience below all thought I was done for, because what Bai Hu had used was the triple echo thunderclap fist. What followed was a one-sided beatdown. I could only desperately defend and block. If this kept up, I would definitely lose. I had to find a chance to counterattack, but he could easily see through my openings. A fist smashed viciously into my face. I was sent flying 5 or 6 meters away. My consciousness was fading as I hit the ground. Bai Hu walked over and planted his foot on my head. "Kid, you're not getting the prize money for this match. However, my master invites you to join us. You'll be throwing matches for us from now on. Just nod your head, and we'll give you the prize money for this fight anyway." I refused outright. "And you dare call yourselves martial artists? I will never do something so shameless." His eyes filled with killing intent. "Since there's nothing to discuss, then I'll just have to cripple you." As he spoke, he raised his foot to stomp on me. After I dodged his kick, I had only one belief in my heart. I must become a true martial artist. A blue panel suddenly popped up before my eyes. "For your family and your beliefs. What are you willing to give?" I roared in my mind. "I am willing to give everything." The next second, I found myself in a strange, ancient palace. Before me stood a tall, divine figure glowing with golden light. It spoke in a deep voice. After it finished speaking, its figure dissipated. A golden panel appeared before me. It displayed all of my attributes. Confused, I clicked on Tasks to check. Random quest. The way of the arena. The player is to hone their martial arts here. Defeat Bai Hu, who is waiting in the outside world. Objective. Raise Vajra Fist proficiency to mastery. Raise Floating Light Palm and Void Treading Step to refinement. This quest enables the beginner's guide. Just as I was pondering this, someone suddenly threw a punch at me. I instinctively dodged by dropping into a squat. When I got a clear look, I discovered this person was a doppelganger of myself, and the Vajra fist he used was far more exquisite than mine. Every single move was as perfect as a textbook example. With such a great model right in front of me, how could I possibly miss this chance? The moment that thought crossed my mind, the doppelganger grabbed my right hand. I was stunned. Was he helping me with a demonstration? However, his other fist slammed viciously into my waist. I was knocked back several steps, but the panel showed. Vajra fist refinement 10%. It's working this fast? I began to focus completely on sparring with my doppelganger. Vajra fist. Void treading step floating light palm. In this strange space where I couldn't feel the passage of time, I forgot all about fatigue. My eyes saw only the techniques, and the other me who was constantly correcting and forging my skills. I don't know how much time passed. Floating light palm and void treading step at 100% refinement. Vajra fist at 100% refinement. Quest complete. The doppelganger slowly faded away. System rewards have been distributed. It asked if I wanted to return to reality. After I agreed, my consciousness returned to my body. It was as if time in the outside world had been paused. Bai Hu, thinking I was just putting on an act, once again threw his thunderclap fist. Not only did I dodge it with ease, but I even taunted him for being so slow. Before he could even react, my fist was already in his face. A single, powerful punch shattered his white fox mask, sending him crashing to the ground. The crowd was in complete disbelief. I turned to look at the host. I won. When do I get the prize money? She snapped out of it and quickly grabbed the microphone. Congratulations to the Minotaur for successfully defending his title. He's taking home the grand prize of 60,000. In a private box, the man in the suit was stunned. How could a mere martial apprentice master the diamond fist? Even most full-fledged martial artists can't do that. He turned to his two henchmen. Follow him. Find out who he is. On my way home, I noticed I was being followed. I deliberately ducked into an old alley and wedged myself high up in the narrow gap between two buildings. The two men in suits ran in, only to find they'd lost me. They looked frustrated. What do we do? The boss told us we had to find out who he is. I sneered to myself. And you thought you could follow me? An hour later, I got home and tossed the 60,000 in cash onto the table. My aunt and uncle's eyes went wide. They thought I must have done something illegal. I already had my story ready. I'm working as a sparring partner at a martial arts dojo. The dojo master thinks I have talent, so he decided to sponsor my training. They know I never lie, so they believed me. That night, I snuck up to the rooftop to get some fresh air. I felt amazing. I was only able to pull off that comeback thanks to this mysterious system. Other than my martial arts level, none of my other stats seem to have changed. But I gained 67 martial arts points. The system said I got them for defeating a higher level opponent. I can use them to increase my vitality and martial skills. I'll raise my vitality to 90 and see what happens. The next moment, a powerful energy surged through my entire body. I've already reached the level of a quasi-martial artist. Excited, I dumped all my remaining points into vitality. Not only did my physical strength increase dramatically, but my injuries also almost completely healed. I feel like I have limitless power. First things first, I need to find a place to test my new strength. I went to the school's open-air training grounds and walked up to a Tier 1 combat power tester. I only used about 70% of my strength and threw a punch. I was stunned. I completely broke the machine. I was just worrying that the school would make me pay for it. When I heard the old principal's roar in the distance, I was terrified and got out of there fast. When he got to the training grounds, he was hopping mad. Which little brat did this? The only ones at school with that kind of power are Xianxia and Li Ju. The next day, the whole class gathered in the gym. I found out from my good buddy that Xianxia took the fall and got punished by the principal. Today, the principal specially invited his old comrade in arms, a Tier 3 martial artist named Chen Tian. He was here to personally teach everyone AC rank martial art, the Rushing Thunder Fist. The students erupted with excitement. It was the first time any of us had seen a Tier 3 martial artist. I was a little surprised myself. Isn't that the same move the White Fox almost killed me with? I heard that if you wanted to learn this on the outside, the registration fee alone is hundreds of thousands. This was an opportunity I had to seize, no matter what. Instructor Chen Tian would demonstrate the whole thing 10 times. How much you learn is up to you, he said as he began the demonstration. The Rushing Thunder Fist, its movements are fierce and overpowering. At the beginner level, your punches can create the sound of a thunderclap. At the proficient level, you can produce 3 claps. At the micro mastery level, 5 claps. Full mastery gets you 7 claps, which is precisely the level I'm at now. Chen Tian pulled back his fist and stood still. When you reach the perfect realm, you can produce 9 claps. But don't get ahead of yourselves. Just mastering the basics today would be a great achievement. He then began his second demonstration, and the students all started to follow his movements. A few hours later, the gym was filled with groans of exhaustion. My buddy, drenched in sweat, said, "Man, this high-level martial art is way too hard." He turned to ask how I was doing, but realized I had already left the gym. Meanwhile, Chen Shan, who was nearby, had successfully mastered the basics, drawing a wave of envious stares. The principal praised his talent to Chen Tian. Interested in giving him some pointers? Chen Tian shot him a disdainful glance. In any other city, that would barely be a passing grade. The two of them walked out of the gym, chatting as they went. Chen Tian teased the principal, saying this year's students weren't up to par and that he'd wasted his trip. Just then, they both heard the 7 claps of a rushing thunder fist. Following the sound, they saw a young man in a clearing in the distance. Chen Tian was stunned. Since when did your school have an expert of this caliber? The principal was just as amazed. He had never heard of anyone like that. Then, another, even more explosive thunderclap echoed. Chen Tian's face was a mask of shock. This time, there were 9 claps. A flash of insight struck him. I finally get it. He started practicing the rushing thunder fist right then and there. Very quickly, 8 thunderous claps exploded from his fists. As he pulled his punch back, his face was flush with excitement. It was the intent behind that person's fist that gave me the breakthrough. Otherwise, I might have been stuck at this level for the rest of my life. Chen Tian's expression suddenly changed. Wait a minute, quick, let's find out who that student is. But when they ran to the clearing, it was already empty. On my way home, I never thought practicing a G-rank technique would be more exhausting than a co-rank one. My rushing thunder fist showed a perfect mastery. Next, I need to focus on breaking through to the warrior realm. I wonder if I can gain combat points from a normal sparring match. With that thought in mind, I headed to the Raging Thunder dojo where I work part-time. Inside, quite a few people were practicing their spear techniques. Xiao Song was just saying hi to me. Suddenly, a guy with purple hair knocked over another young man. And you still have the nerve to say my master's teaching is bad? He's just making excuses for his own lack of talent, Xiao Song grumbled to me. That purple-haired guy's name is Li Yan. He's the apprentice of the new instructor, Zhang Mo. Just like his master, he looks down on us regular students. Li Yan grabbed the student by the collar with his left hand. His right fist was clenched. You dare challenge me with your pathetic level of skill? Just as he was about to bring his fist down, I stepped forward and grabbed his wrist. That's enough, buddy. He glared at me, annoyed, and challenged me to a one-on-one fight in the ring. I readily agreed. Just then, Instructor Zhang Mo spoke up, frowning. What's all the racket about? Class is starting. Li Yan turned and jogged over to him. You got lucky, kid. Instructor Zhang Mo was holding a long spear. Today is the last day I'll be teaching you the Raging Sea Spear technique. Same rules as always. I'm only going to demonstrate this once. With that, he began his demonstration in the center of the floor, his heart filled with contempt. Not that a bunch of useless hacks like you could learn it anyway. In my eyes, however, it was as if his every move was in slow motion. I could easily perceive every single detail, model. I was frantically absorbing the essence of this spear technique, and before I knew it, Zhang Mo had finished his demonstration. As he and Li Yan entered the rest area, the students erupted in complaints. This is such a rip-off. We can't see anything from the back. But I felt completely different. The core principle of this spear technique is, the spear's momentum must be as agile and swift as a flood dragon entering the sea, while the attacks must be like colossal, unending waves crashing against the sky. Until the enemy is completely engulfed. I began to practice this Raging Sea Spear technique. Hearing the commotion, Li Yan pushed the door open. What's all the noise? As if you lot could ever learn it. Then he saw me practicing with the spear. Could this guy be a genius? Li Yan offered to give me some pointers on my spear technique. I gladly agreed. Holding the long spear, I assumed a starting stance. Your guidance, please. Li Yan's spear thrust toward me. He was only at the rudimentary realm. He had no idea I had already achieved mastery in the Raging Sea Spear technique. With a single strike, I sent his spear flying. System prompt. Defeated a martial artist of a higher rank. Martial value plus 35. So you really can gain martial value from a simple spar. Li Yan collapsed to his knees, his eyes glazed over. Clearly, the blow was more than he could handle. What were all those years of hard training for? Extreme shame and anger made him lose his senses. He suddenly threw a wild punch right at me. That's enough. Zhang Mo's voice boomed, stopping him. I don't know when he came out. He slapped Li Yan across the face in front of everyone. You can't even face defeat? What kind of martial artist do you call yourself? In reality, Zhang Mo's mind was reeling. To master the Raging Sea Spear technique after seeing it demonstrated only once. Such insight not even the top geniuses in the capital could compare. He forced Li Yan's head down, making him apologize to me, and told me not to take it to heart. This guy sure changes his tune fast. But I didn't make a big deal out of it. On the way home, I remembered the school exams were just a few days away. The wealthier students had all prepared high-grade alloy weapons. The long spear felt pretty natural in my hands today. Decided I might as well specialize in spear techniques from now on. But an alloy long spear costs at least 10,000 bucks. The money I had on me wasn't nearly enough. As I was passing by a mall, a news report on the big screen caught my eye. The number of beasts outside Star City was on the rise. The city lord's mansion was now offering a public bounty, calling on all martial artists to hunt them. Now there's a way to earn some money. When I got home, I went up to the rooftop alone, deciding to boost my strength once more. I put all the martial value I had just earned into my chi and blood, bringing it up to 95.2. I was just one step away from becoming a martial artist. I practically lived in the school gym, training all my martial arts skills to the perfect state. That Saturday, I went to the Star City martial artist base. Martial artists, normally a rare sight, were everywhere. I took out the bounty regulations to examine them closely. You get the corresponding reward for killing a beast, but you have to cut off its left ear as proof. Otherwise, you won't be paid. I looked up at the bounty settlement window. Just as I saw a martial artist handing a package to a staff member, suddenly, a rude shout came from behind me. Everyone, get out of the way. Can't you see young Master Yi has arrived? I saw a team of 5 people, led by a young man with blonde hair, swaggering as they cut straight to the front of the line. The blonde guy's expression and demeanor instantly reminded me of White Fox from the underground fighting ring. Just then, his gaze swept over in my direction, a smirk playing on his lips. I turned and walked away, reminding myself, out in the wild, the beasts aren't the only danger. Sometimes, you have to watch out for your own kind. As I pushed deeper into the forest, my first prey finally appeared. It was an early first-rank beast, a shadow moon wolf. It let out a howl, and lunged, a gray blur, its sharp claws aimed right at my throat. I ducked under the attack, closing in on its relatively undefended abdomen. Now's my chance. I clenched my fist. I slammed a rushing thunder fist right into its stomach. The shadow moon wolf let out a pained howl, and crashed hard against a tree trunk behind it. After a few twitches, it stopped moving. I stared at my trembling hands, exhilarated. So this is what it feels like to fight a monster? It's even more thrilling than I imagined. And to think I can one-shot an early first-rank beast. I wonder how I'd do against something stronger. Just as I was thinking that, a mid-first-rank raging black bear appeared behind me, swinging its massive claws. I sent a punch right through it, and the massive bear collapsed with a thud. It seems that at my current level, as long as I don't go looking for trouble with a second-rank beast, I won't be in much danger. I used my knife to cut off the beast's left ear. 3,000 in reward money, secured. A system prompt appeared. Accumulated martial points are sufficient to break through to the next warrior rank. Suddenly, an absolutely terrifying roar echoed from deep within the forest. Curiosity got the better of me, and I quietly snuck closer. In a rocky pit, I saw a high first-rank black jade python, furiously thrashing its tail. It brutally swatted away 2 warriors who were trying to surround it, sending them flying into a rock wall. I couldn't tell if they were dead or alive. Black jade python spotted me, the new intruder. Its thick tail swept toward me at an incredible speed. I couldn't dodge in time. The tail coiled tightly around my waist. Then, with a violent jerk, it slammed me into a clearing dozens of meters away. I couldn't stop myself from spitting up mouthfuls of blood. But then I noticed a warrior's corpse lying next to me. And an alloy-long spear. Perfect, I'll borrow this. This black jade python would clearly take several warriors of the same rank working together to bring down. But all of my martial arts have reached the perfection realm. I'm not out of this fight yet. I unleashed my void walking steps, leaping into the air and charging toward the python's raised head. The spear struck like a dragon, piercing the beast's vital spot with absolute precision. It hissed in agony. I quickly scrambled across its massive body, snatched up the long spear, and went in for another attack. This thrust also pierced its body. But it was hard to land a fatal blow. This strategy was draining, but it was the safest approach. As I watched its energy fade, I knew it was reaching its limit. A few more passes and it would be mine. Suddenly, I sensed someone approaching. I turned to see a warrior ambushing me with a punch. I managed to raise my arm to block in time. But the immense force still sent me flying, and I slammed hard onto the ground. I looked up. It was young Master Yi and his team. Young Master Yi sneered. We meet again. How about you hand over this black jade python to me? I thought you left the city to get yourself killed, you punk. I never thought you'd be so lucky as to stumble upon a critically injured black jade python. Looks like they just got here. But my fight with the python has taken a lot out of me. A head-on fight isn't a smart move. The man in the mask clenched his fist and charged at me again. I scowled. You only landed that hit because you ambushed me. You really think I can't beat you? The moment our fists collided, he was stunned by my terrifying strength. I gave him no time to react, smashing a diamond fist right into his face. He dropped dead on the spot. Yi Xiao revealed a sinister smile. He recognized me as the Minotaur from the arena. No wonder he looked so familiar. So, Yi Xiao was the White Fox. He immediately ordered his teammates to kill me. 3 martial artists charged at me at once. I snatched a long spear from the ground, and turned, darting deep into the dense forest. Yi Xiao and his men gave chase. But they couldn't find any trace of me. Yi Xiao warned everyone to watch out for an ambush. The man in the mask walking in front wasn't concerned. There are 4 of us martial artists. You think we're afraid of a single martial apprentice? The next second, I appeared behind him like a ghost. By the time he turned around, it was already too late. I killed him instantly with a single rushing thunder fist, and my figure vanished back into the forest. Yi Xiao couldn't believe how fast I was. The other two martial artists broke out in a cold sweat. That was a 9-hit rushing thunder fist. Even a third-tier martial artist might not be able to master that. Yi Xiao started to panic too, refusing to believe a genius like me could exist in this world. At that moment, I was sitting on a tree branch, observing the three of them. If the fight with the giant python hadn't drained so much of my stamina, I could have crushed them head-on. Now, I had to find opportunities to take them down one by one. I suddenly hurled the spear. In the instant they turned to look, I had already appeared in front of the man with the bangs. I kneed him in the head. He didn't even have time to fall. Before my figure vanished again, the man with the backpack was completely stunned. He urged Yi Xiao to run, but Yi Xiao was blinded by rage. Are you kidding me? I'm going to slaughter him today no matter what. Before he could even finish his sentence, I appeared behind the man with the backpack. I knocked him to the ground with a single punch, then quickly picked up the spear from the ground. I was about to deliver the final blow to Yi Xiao, but he reacted quickly. He spun around. Don't think you've won. He thrust a finger at me, and a visible blast of energy shot towards me. I dodged to the side. The energy blast snapped the tree behind me in half. Such power. That has to be at least a B-grade martial skill. Yi Xiao's void-piercing finger shot out again and again, sending sharp blasts of energy crisscrossing through the air. Forcing me to keep dodging, he then threatened me menacingly. I've memorized your face. If you dare to touch me, I'll go back and slaughter your entire family. Hearing that, I couldn't hold back anymore. He had undoubtedly crossed my line. No matter what, I had to finish him today. Yi Xiao was still shouting, my uncle is the director of the martial artist base. My father Issa Euro, before he could finish. I appeared behind him like a phantom. I much preferred your arrogant attitude from before. As I spoke, I smashed a fist into his face, sending him flying into a clearing. Dust and smoke filled the air. I walked slowly towards him. Today is the day you die. You should never have threatened my family. Yi Xiao was now seriously injured. He couldn't understand how I, who wasn't even a full martial artist, could be so absurdly strong. However, the black jade python had silently slithered up behind him. It whipped him hard with its tail. I was a little surprised. This giant snake recovered its stamina so quickly. It must have been fighting them for a while. Meanwhile, the warrior I'd knocked unconscious had woken up and saw me running in this direction. He was cursing and swearing, coming to settle the score with me until he saw the giant snake chasing right behind me. He and his men were completely stunned. I quickly dodged the giant's attack. 3 unlucky guys were bitten to death one by one by the giant python. A system prompt read, indirectly killing warriors grants martial value. What an unexpected bonus. But this is no time to celebrate. Because that giant snake is still hot on my tail. I have to find a safe place to break through to the warrior realm. I pushed my void treading steps to the limit and soon spotted an inconspicuous cave entrance in the distance. I rushed inside without a moment's hesitation, and the giant python came crashing in after me. Luckily, its body was too massive, so it got stuck outside. Only its head could desperately force its way in. I seized the chance to pour my martial value into my chi and blood, and it began to skyrocket. My entire body felt like it was on fire. When my chi and blood reached 100, I successfully broke through and became a first-rank warrior. The giant snake sensed the change in my aura. It instinctively tried to pull its head back and escape. Thinking of running now? Too late. After I charged up a punch, the giant python was blasted out of the cave. I followed right behind it. Leaping into midair, I smashed the Vajra fist right into its body. Then, using all my strength, I hurled my long spear, piercing it with perfect accuracy right through its vital spot. The immense force carried its massive body, pinning it straight to the ground. The giant python let out a blood-curdling screech. I unleashed my finishing move, the 9-sound rushing thunder fist, and slammed it hard onto the top of its skull. System notification. Black Jade Giant Snake defeated. Martial value plus 92. Since young Master Yi's squad was killed by it, to avoid any unnecessary trouble, I decided to just forget about turning in the giant snake for reward. I walked over to young Master Yi's body. He had already been crushed to death by the python. I quickly searched his backpack and, sure enough, found that B-rank martial art, Void Breaking Finger. I started learning it in the cave that same day, committing all the basic techniques to memory. With a single thought, I re-entered the system space. My clone slowly materialized, and I began practicing the Void Breaking Finger under its guidance. Before I knew it, I'd reached the introductory level. When my consciousness returned to reality, my nose was actually bleeding. This B-rank martial art really is something else. To think it's already putting this much pressure on me at just the introductory level. For the next 3 days, I practiced while hunting ferocious beasts. After one-shotting a raging black bear, I couldn't stop an excited grin from spreading across my face. I've finally mastered the Void Breaking Finger. It's time to head back. When I set foot in the Star City warrior base again, a long line had already formed at the settlement counter. A staff member was tallying up the Thunder Squad's haul, a grand total of 230,000. The onlooking warriors were green with envy. That single haul was worth several months of their hard work. Meanwhile, the window I was lining up at drew an even bigger crowd. The staff member tallied up my backpack, for a total of 406,000 blue star coins. When they called out that number, even my heart skipped a beat. It was way too conspicuous. I should have turned in less. The money was quickly transferred to my card. Just as I was about to leave this troublesome place, a loud bang echoed from inside the base's first floor. Everyone jumped. It was the base director, Yi Chi, who was so furious that he had just punched down a wall. All because he'd just learned that his nephew, Yi Feng, along with 4 of his squad members, had all been killed outside the city. He ordered his men to seal every exit in the base. He said not even a fly was to get out. All the warriors just stared at each other, completely baffled. Yi Feng's team was actually wiped out? Still, I couldn't help but cheer inside. After all, Yi Feng had stolen prey and resources from most of the martial artists. Someone had finally served justice. Chi's icy gaze swept across the area. Yi Feng was carrying a precious B-rank martial arts technique. Now it's missing. All martial artists must undergo a full body search. You can only leave after you've been cleared of suspicion. I did my best to remain calm. Judging by their bodies, it's clear they were killed by a giant python. It's unlikely they can trace it back to me. Just then, a staff member from the settlement office said something to Chi. His gaze immediately locked onto me. He walked straight towards me with a few of his men. He frowned, looking me up and down. "Young man, I heard you hunted ferocious beasts worth 400,000 all by yourself? Are you really that skilled?" The woman next to him assumed I had taken young Master Yi's backpack. She ordered 2 muscular martial artists to forcibly search me. I had already leveled the long spear in my hand, stating that I was a student at Star City No. 1 High School. She knew the principal of No. 1 High was overprotective and not to be trifled with, but my case was highly suspicious. He was also worried about offending a genius, so his attitude became much better than before. He said he hoped I would cooperate with him to find the killer, and promised 10,000 yuan as compensation. With a reluctant look on my face, I held up 3 fingers. 30,000. His men searched me from top to bottom. Naturally, they found nothing. Chi didn't look too happy, but he kept his promise and gave me 30,000 yuan. I was secretly gloating. Yi Feng was beaten to death by the giant python to begin with. And I had already burned that martial arts manual to ash. No one would ever trace it back to me. I settled down in a hotel near the base, preparing to allocate the martial value I had earned these past few days. A total of 534 points. The standard chi and blood for a first rank, initial stage martial artist is 100 points. A mid-stage martial artist needs 200. Even if I put all my points into chi and blood, I wouldn't reach the mid-stage. And I still haven't touched spirit and mortal body. I started by adding 1 point to spirit. I didn't feel much of a reaction. I have no idea how many points it would take to become a legendary spirit master. But when I added a point to my mortal body, the power inside me began to surge wildly. I got so excited I dumped points into it in one go, reaching 36.1%. I then distributed the remaining points between chi and blood and spirit. I had actually turned into a muscular hunk, possessing seemingly endless strength. Thankfully, I returned to my original appearance after a while. Otherwise, people would have thought I was practicing some kind of dark arts. An hour later, I arrived at the Martial Artist Association to participate in the official assessment. As long as my combat power test reaches 1000, I'll pass. A female staff member led me to the assessment area. A candidate named Li Meng drew the attention of the entire room. He stood before the combat power monitor. What he unleashed was actually the rushing thunder fist. 3 explosive, thunder-like cracks echoed. His combat power value jumped to 1763. The examiner announced that he had passed. The surrounding group of martial artists was green with envy. That level of combat power had already reached the mid-stage of the first rank. But I heard them discussing that Li Ming was the disciple of Zhang Ming from the Raging Thunder Martial Arts Hall. I suddenly remembered that the guy the first dealt with at the martial arts hall was named Li Yan. It seems Zhang Ming has taken on quite a few disciples. When it was my turn for the chi and blood test, Li Ming sneered to himself. Such a young kid, here just to join in on the excitement. Does he really think he's a genius like me? However, the next moment, he heard the martial artist's incredulous gasps. How is his chi and blood so high? Is this monitor broken? Li Ming whipped his head around. The monitor displayed that my chi and blood was 123 points. It was significantly higher than his. He gritted his teeth, consoling himself in his heart. High chi and blood doesn't prove anything. Combat power is the only thing that matters. Next up was my combat power test. After becoming a martial artist, my power has already doubled. Just to be safe, I'll only use 50% of my strength. I landed a heavy punch on the striking pad. The detector actually flew right off. The expressions on everyone's faces froze. Li Ming, especially, felt like a complete clown. This kid didn't even use a martial arts technique. And his power level still reached 3004. You have to understand, the standard for a high-rank tier 1 martial artist is only 3000 points. On the second floor, a man in a suit witnessed this, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. So it was this kid. Meanwhile, in the office of the president of the Star City Martial Arts Association branch, Xianxia was looking at a message on her phone, clearly annoyed. Another genius has emerged from the neighboring Yang City. If Star City doesn't produce a decent prospect soon, how am I supposed to hold on to this position? Just as she was feeling frustrated, a staff member burst in, panting, to make a report. President, a prodigy just showed up at the martial artist assessment. He's only an initial stage tier 1, but his power level tested at 3004 points. Xian found it hard to believe. Down in the central hall on the first floor, a staff member was about to take me to the second floor to register as a martial artist and then collect my stipend. But Xian was already standing at the top of the second floor stairs. You're not needed here anymore. Leave this kid to me. The staff member hadn't expected the president herself to personally handle the reception. Xian gave me a slight smile. You must be Su Hong. I'm the president of the Star City Martial Arts Association branch. Come with me. I nodded. I'd heard she was a tier 5 martial artist. But she didn't seem like the kind of master I had imagined. I was just taking a routine talent test. Yet it impressed even top martial artists. And that was just because she had an 80% affinity with the fire attribute. She became the president of the Martial Arts Association at 30, all while I have a 100% affinity with all 7 attributes. This level of cultivation talent has already surpassed every genius she's ever seen. So, it turns out my power level test shocked the Martial Arts Association. President Xian came to receive me herself. As soon as we got to her office, she started complaining. That Li Xianxia actually tried to hide a genius like you from me. Just a while ago, he was crying to me about how number 1 high school had no good prospects. I couldn't help but ask why she brought me here. She seemed to notice my apprehension, and told me not to worry, that my martial artist certificate and monthly stipend would be taken care of quickly. She even offered to personally teach me the guiding art, but everything I knew about it came from textbooks. The guiding art strengthens the body by absorbing spiritual energy from the world. Different types of spiritual energy require corresponding guiding arts to be absorbed. But Xian told me that the guiding art isn't just a method for cultivation. It can also be used for combat. For instance, the heavenly flame guiding art that she practices. It primarily absorbs fire attribute spiritual energy, allowing her attacks to carry the destructive properties of fire. When the element is projected outward, it can also greatly increase your attack range. However, tier 1 martial artists are relatively weak. It's considered remarkable if they can manifest even a tiny bit of their element. Spiritual energy is divided into a total of 7 attributes: metal, wood, water, fire, earth, lightning, and wind. In terms of pure attack power, lightning is number 1, metal is second, and fire is third. Which guiding art you can practice depends on your affinity. Xian held up the crystal ball used for the test. Flames erupted from her palm. The larger the glowing area on the crystal ball, the higher your affinity. The average martial artist is around 30%. I reached 80%, which is considered extremely high. But a genius like you should definitely be able to surpass 90%. I took the crystal ball from her. I tried to channel my senses into it. The next moment, an intense fiery light suddenly burst from the sphere, illuminating the entire office. Xian excitedly slapped my shoulder. An affinity of 100%. This means you can fully absorb fire attribute spiritual energy, giving you the highest possible cultivation efficiency. Your future power and status will surpass even mine. I have to admit, I have mixed feelings about that. Fire attribute is nice and all, but I've always preferred lightning. If only I had this high of an affinity for the lightning attribute. To the moment that thought crossed my mind, the crystal ball in my hand suddenly erupted with lightning, completely engulfing the entire sphere in an instant. She was completely stunned. 100% affinity for both fire and lightning? This is just monstrous. Before she could even process the shock, a burst of cyan light erupted from the crystal ball. Wind attribute also 100%. Over the next few minutes, all of my remaining attributes also tested at 100%. Xian felt like she was in a dream. She had always considered herself a top-tier genius. But now, faced with someone who defied all logic, she realized she was just an ordinary person in comparison. And to defeat an enemy like that, you could only rely on someone who was just as illogical. Meanwhile, I was facing a different dilemma. It would be such a waste to only cultivate the lightning attribute. So I asked her to give me a copy of the guidance techniques for all 7 attributes, but Xian argued that a person's energy is finite. Even with immense talent, it's best to focus on no more than 2. She told me someone once tried to cultivate all 7 techniques and was still a rank 1 martial artist decades later. I made an excuse, saying I couldn't decide yet and wanted to try practicing each of them. Then, I'd choose the one that suited me best. She let out a sigh of relief. She warned me not to be reckless and squander my gift. Then, she brought up our academy's monthly exam. A great war between the myriad races and the Zhu clan could break out at any moment. And nations were pouring massive resources into organizing training camps for the gifted. She wanted to recommend me for one. All I had to do was get first place in the monthly exam to secure a spot. I agreed immediately. I promised her I would get that spot. I still remember the great myriad race war from over a decade ago. I lost all of my relatives except for my aunt and uncle. I absolutely cannot let a tragedy like that happen again. I have to get stronger, as fast as I can. When I got home, I told my aunt and uncle the good news that I become a martial artist. They were so happy they cried. They said I'd finally made something of myself. As a rank 1 martial artist, I'd receive a monthly stipend of 1 cube, which would lighten our family's financial burden considerably. And in the future, I'm going to give them an even better life. Late that night, I went up to the rooftop alone. I sat cross-legged on the ground, closed my eyes, and began to cultivate. In less than a minute, I had mastered the basics of the heavenly flame guidance technique. But when I threw a punch into the air, my fist just let out a little puff of white smoke. It felt completely powerless. I opened my system panel and took a look. Heavenly flame guidance technique, level 1. Wait, does this mean it can be leveled up? Don't tell me I'm the only one who can level it up. I was about to use my martial Dao points to test it. But the system popped up a warning, insufficient martial Dao points. I spent the next few hours cultivating until I had mastered the basics of all 7 guidance techniques. But inside my body, the spiritual energies of the 7 different attributes were repelling each other within my chi and blood. Even though all the energies were present, I could only wield one of them at a time. If I tried to force out a second attribute, the 2 powers would violently clash. And then completely dissipate, but I refused to accept that. I figured that lightning and fire were relatively similar in nature, so I kept trying. Every single attempt ended in failure. It wasn't until dawn, when I had almost completely run out of patience, that something amazing happened. The lightning and fire finally, masterfully, merged into one. I was ecstatic. I couldn't wait to test its power, so I rushed to the combat arena. I even specially switched to a more durable, rank 3 combat power detector. Last time, I hit 3000 combat power with just 50% of my strength. This time, I'll just use 30%. I channeled the lightning fire element into my fist and threw a fierce punch at the target. My combat power actually reached 3041. This level of strength has already surpassed a high level, rank 1 martial artist. If I could fuse 7 elements, then dominating the world wouldn't even be a problem. I plan to go back and try fusing 3 elements, but after training hard on the rooftop for 2 hours, I made no progress at all. I wonder if leveling up my guidance technique would help with the fusion. The school's monthly exam is tomorrow. I should focus on earning some martial arts points first.